Great Hanshin Earthquake, also known as the Kobe earthquake, struck Japan on January 17, 1995, with a magnitude of 6.9. It remains one of the deadliest and most devastating earthquakes in Japan's history. This earthquake hit the region around the city of Kobe, located in the Hyogo Prefecture. The earthquake's epicenter was located just off the coast, in the northern part of the Seto Inland Sea, and its impact was felt all across the region, affecting millions of people. The timing of the earthquake could not have been worse. It struck at precisely 5:46 a.m., while most people were still asleep in their homes. The suddenness of the tremor caught many off guard. In just a few moments, the city was shaken to its core and the damage was immediate. Buildings collapsed, roads cracked, and bridges crumbled. The chaos of that morning was overwhelming, with no time for warning or preparation. Kobe, a major port city and one of Japan's most important economic hubs, was severely affected. Its infrastructure was completely devastated, making rescue and recovery operations incredibly difficult. The earthquake caused fires to break out across the city, further hindering efforts to save those trapped under rubble. Many of the older buildings in Kobe, which were not designed to withstand such a powerful quake, were reduced to rubble. Meanwhile, newer, supposedly safer buildings fared better, but even they were not immune to the massive shaking. More than 6,000 people lost their lives that morning, and thousands more were injured. Entire neighborhoods were destroyed, leaving thousands of residents homeless. In addition to the loss of life, the economic toll was staggering. Kobe's port, a vital part of the local economy, was closed due to the destruction, and businesses were forced to shut down as the city struggled to recover from the disaster. In the days and weeks following the earthquake, the scale of the disaster became clearer. The people of Kobe faced a long and grueling recovery process. Roads, bridges, and railways had been damaged beyond recognition, and the lack of communication only made it more difficult for emergency responders to reach the hardest-hit areas. The rescue teams were overwhelmed, and the government was unprepared for such a large-scale disaster. In the aftermath of the earthquake, Japan began to reassess its earthquake preparedness systems. While the country had long been aware of the seismic activity in the region, the Great Hanshin Earthquake exposed the limitations of Japan's infrastructure and response systems. The earthquake was a wake-up call for the nation and the world, showing just how vulnerable even the most advanced cities could be in the face of a major natural disaster. The aftermath of the Great Hanshin Earthquake was a time of immense hardship for the people of Kobe and the surrounding areas. The destruction was not just physical, but emotional as well. In addition to the loss of life, the earthquake shattered the lives of countless individuals who were left without homes, businesses, or even basic services. Many survivors found themselves struggling to find food, clean water, and medical supplies as the city's infrastructure had collapsed. Hospitals, schools, and other essential buildings were either destroyed or severely damaged, making it difficult for the city to provide even the most basic services to its residents. As the days passed, the government and local authorities began to mobilize rescue and relief efforts. Emergency teams from across Japan and around the world rushed to the affected areas to search for survivors, but the scale of the disaster was so vast that it took days, even weeks, before help could reach some of the most devastated neighborhoods. The most affected areas were the older parts of the city, where buildings had not been built to withstand an earthquake of such magnitude. In these areas, entire blocks of homes and businesses were reduced to rubble, trapping people under collapsed structures. One of the major challenges was the lack of accessible roads and transportation. With bridges and highways destroyed, rescue teams had to find alternative routes to reach those in need. This slowed down efforts to rescue survivors and deliver critical aid. The scale of the damage also made it difficult for emergency teams to communicate and coordinate their efforts. For days, many parts of the city were completely cut off from the outside world. The earthquake also caused fires that ravaged large portions of the city. Many of these fires broke out in the immediate aftermath of the quake, fueled by broken gas lines and damaged electrical wiring. The fire crews were unable to reach all of the fires due to the damage to the roads and the overwhelming number of other emergencies. As a result, entire neighborhoods burned for hours, adding to the destruction and further complicating the recovery efforts. In addition to the physical damage, the psychological toll on the survivors was immense. Many had lost loved ones, their homes, and their livelihoods. The trauma of experiencing the earthquake and its aftermath lingered for years, with many people struggling with feelings of grief, anxiety, and fear. In the days and weeks that followed, support services began to be set up to help the survivors cope with the emotional and psychological effects of the disaster. As the immediate shock of the earthquake began to wear off, the long-term impact on Kobe and the surrounding areas became clearer. The damage was not just to the buildings and infrastructure, but to the very heart of the city. Kobe's economy, which had relied heavily on its port and industrial sectors, was devastated. Many businesses were forced to close and unemployment rates soared. The city's economy would take years to fully recover, and the effects of the earthquake were felt across the entire country. The earthquake also raised important questions about the way Japan and other countries approach disaster preparedness. The devastation caused by the Great Hanshin Earthquake highlighted the need for more resilient infrastructure, better communication systems, and more efficient disaster response plans. Japan, known for its advanced technology and infrastructure, found itself overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the disaster, prompting a nationwide reevaluation of how to prepare for future earthquakes and other natural disasters. In the wake of the tragedy, Japan committed to rebuilding and improving its disaster preparedness systems. The lessons learned from the Great Hanshin Earthquake led to changes in building codes, emergency response procedures, and public education about earthquake safety. The tragedy, while devastating, also served as a catalyst for change, ensuring that Japan would be better equipped to face future disasters. As the dust settled in the wake of the Great Hanshin Earthquake, the focus shifted from rescue to recovery and rebuilding. The immense scale of the damage in Kobe and its surrounding areas meant that the recovery process would take years, not just months. The earthquake had severely impacted the city's infrastructure, and the efforts to rebuild it were daunting. The sheer magnitude of the destruction left the government and local authorities scrambling to find the resources needed to reconstruct roads, bridges, schools, hospitals, and homes. One of the biggest challenges was the rebuilding of the city's transportation network. With roads and highways destroyed, there was a critical need to restore vital links between Kobe and the rest of Japan. Reconstruction efforts had to balance speed with safety, ensuring that the new infrastructure could withstand future earthquakes. The city's port, a crucial part of its economy, was heavily damaged. With Kobe being one of Japan's busiest ports, the closure of the port for months created a ripple effect throughout the country, impacting trade and supply chains. The task of restoring the port to full capacity was a monumental one, requiring new facilities and the relocation of cargo operations to other areas until the port was fully rebuilt. During the reconstruction, the focus was also on strengthening the city's infrastructure to ensure it would be better prepared for future earthquakes. Japan's government introduced stricter building codes and regulations, demanding that new construction projects and repairs be more resilient to seismic activity. This involved using advanced engineering techniques to reinforce buildings and structures, incorporating new materials that could absorb shock and prevent collapse. Many buildings that were originally constructed with insufficient earthquake-resistant designs were retrofitted to meet these new standards. The goal was to make Kobe and other cities more resilient to earthquakes, reducing the loss of life and property in future events. As rebuilding efforts continued, the emotional and psychological recovery was just as critical. Thousands of survivors had lost family members, homes, and businesses, leaving them grappling with feelings of loss and trauma. The community faced not only the physical challenge of rebuilding, but also the emotional task of coming to terms with the devastation. Local support networks, including counseling services, were established to help individuals cope with the trauma. Many survivors found comfort in rebuilding their communities, forming tight-knit groups that worked together to restore their neighborhoods. This sense of unity and collective strength became a cornerstone of the recovery process. The Great Hanshin Earthquake also prompted the Japanese government and experts to reevaluate their disaster preparedness systems. The lessons learned from this disaster were invaluable, leading to the development of more advanced early warning systems, improved disaster response protocols, and a greater focus on community involvement in preparedness efforts. Japan's government took the opportunity to make significant changes in how the country would handle natural disasters in the future. New technologies and systems for predicting earthquakes were implemented, including advanced seismic monitoring equipment and systems to warn the public of impending earthquakes. While no technology could ever fully eliminate the risk of an earthquake, the goal was to minimize the damage and loss of life when disaster struck. Internationally, the aftermath of the Great Hanshin Earthquake was seen as a wake-up call for countries around the world, especially those located in earthquake-prone areas. Many nations looked to Japan's recovery efforts as a model for how to rebuild after a natural disaster and improve their own disaster preparedness systems. The outpouring of support from countries around the world as well as international relief efforts, highlighted the importance of global cooperation in the face of catastrophe. The recovery from the Great Hanshin Earthquake was not just about rebuilding physical structures, it was about restoring hope and resilience. The people of Kobe, and Japan as a whole, showed an incredible spirit in the face of devastation. Through years of hard work, determination, and a collective commitment to rebuilding, Kobe was able to emerge from the ruins stronger and more prepared for the future. The earthquake, while tragic, ultimately led to profound changes that shaped Japan's approach to disaster preparedness and recovery, making the country better equipped to face the challenges posed by natural disasters in the years to come. In the years following the Great Hanshin Earthquake, the long and difficult process of rebuilding continued to unfold, but the impact of the disaster lingered in ways that went beyond physical structures. The trauma experienced by the people of Kobe and the surrounding areas, as well as the lessons learned during the recovery, reshaped not only the city but Japan as a whole. The earthquake served as a catalyst for significant changes in disaster preparedness, urban planning, and the way the country viewed its vulnerability to natural disasters. One of the major shifts that occurred after the earthquake was a more community-centered approach to disaster preparedness. Prior to the Great Hanshin Earthquake, Japan had focused heavily on large-scale government response systems. While these systems were important, the events of January 17, 1995, revealed how critical it was for local communities to be actively involved in disaster preparedness. In Kobe, as residents worked together to rebuild their neighborhoods, they developed close-knit networks that could respond more effectively in future emergencies. These local efforts became a model for other parts of Japan, encouraging a greater focus on community-based disaster education and planning. The lessons learned during the recovery process demonstrated that effective disaster response wasn't just about having government resources at the ready, it was about having a well-informed and prepared public. The devastation caused by the earthquake also accelerated technological advancements in Japan's earthquake detection and early warning systems. Prior to 1995, Japan had some of the most advanced seismic monitoring equipment in the world, but the scale of the disaster revealed room for improvement. After the earthquake, the Japanese government invested heavily in expanding and enhancing its earthquake monitoring networks. This included the introduction of more sensitive sensors capable of detecting tremors and predicting earthquakes with greater accuracy. These advancements have saved countless lives in the years since, with early warning systems now alerting people of impending quakes seconds before they hit, providing just enough time to take cover or evacuate. These efforts highlighted the importance of using technology not only for recovery, but for prevention, mitigation, and survival. In addition to technological advancements, there was also a major rethinking of Japan's building standards and urban planning. Following the earthquake, Japan implemented stricter building codes, ensuring that future construction projects would be able to withstand more severe seismic activity. Many buildings throughout Kobe, as well as in other parts of Japan, were retrofitted to meet these new standards. The goal was to make structures more resistant to earthquakes, reducing the risk of collapse and minimizing damage. In cities like Kobe, which are built on hilly terrain and are densely populated, this was especially important. The lessons learned from the earthquake led to the development of earthquake-resistant technologies, such as shock absorbers and flexible foundations, which are now used in buildings across Japan and around the world. Furthermore, the recovery process highlighted the need for better emergency response coordination between local, regional, and national governments. In the immediate aftermath of the earthquake, there was confusion and inefficiency in the way rescue efforts were carried out. Different agencies and organizations were not always working in sync, and there were significant delays in providing aid to those who needed it most. This was due in part to the sheer scale of the disaster and the difficulty of navigating through the debris-strewn streets. In the years that followed, Japan worked to improve its disaster response systems, establishing clearer lines of communication and coordination. This resulted in faster, more efficient responses during subsequent natural disasters, such as the Great East Japan Earthquake in 2011. The Great Hanshin Earthquake also had a lasting impact on Japan's culture, especially when it came to how the public viewed natural disasters. Prior to the earthquake, many people in Japan, while aware of the country's seismic risks, may not have fully understood the scale of potential destruction. The earthquake of 1995 shattered that sense of complacency, and for many it was a wake-up call. People began to see earthquakes not as isolated events, but but as a constant threat that could strike at any moment. This shift in perspective led to an increased demand for disaster preparedness and education. School children across Japan started to undergo more rigorous earthquake drills, and citizens were encouraged to develop emergency kits and evacuation plans. The earthquake's impact also rippled through the international community. The global response to the disaster was overwhelming, with countries from all over the world sending aid, supplies, and rescue teams. The outpouring of support demonstrated the power of global solidarity in the face of natural disasters. In addition, the Great Hanshin Earthquake led to an increase in international collaboration on disaster preparedness and response. Japan, known for its technological advancements and expertise in seismic activity, shared its knowledge with other nations, helping them better prepare for their own natural disasters. The lessons learned from Kobe continue to influence disaster response strategies around the world. As time passed, Kobe's recovery was marked by remarkable resilience. The city slowly but surely rebuilt itself, not just physically but socially and culturally. The community became stronger, and the people of Kobe, having faced one of the most devastating earthquakes in Japan's history, found new ways to come together in the face of adversity. The memories of that tragic day still live on, but so too does the indomitable spirit of the people who rose from the rubble to rebuild their city and their lives. The legacy of the Great Hanshin Earthquake is one of transformation, a powerful reminder of the importance of preparedness, community, and resilience in the face of disaster. The Great Hanshin Earthquake, which struck on January 17, 1995, left an indelible mark on Japan, both in terms of the physical devastation it caused and the deep emotional scars it left behind. As we look back on the events of that day and the aftermath, it becomes clear that the earthquake, while one of the most tragic moments in Japanese history, also led to profound changes in the way the country prepares for and responds to natural disasters. The loss of over 6,000 lives and the widespread destruction caused by the earthquake transformed not just Kobe, but Japan as a whole, reshaping its approach to urban planning, disaster response, and community resilience. In the years that followed, the people of Kobe and the surrounding areas found the strength to rebuild. The scars left by the earthquake are still visible in some parts of the city, but the determination of its residents has transformed the city into a symbol of resilience and recovery. The disaster prompted a complete rethinking of how Japan would handle future seismic events. While the country had always been aware of the risks posed by earthquakes, the scale and ferocity of the Great Hanshin Earthquake served as a wake-up call that no level of preparedness could fully prepare a nation for such a devastating event. But in the face of this tragedy, Japan's response evolved in ways that would shape disaster management for years to come. The legacy of the Great Hanshin Earthquake is not just about the physical reconstruction of buildings or the development of advanced earthquake warning systems. It's about the lessons learned from the disaster and the ways in which those lessons have shaped the culture of preparedness and the collective memory of the nation. In many ways, the earthquake brought Japan closer together, uniting its citizens in a shared commitment to ensuring that future generations would be better prepared to face the challenges of living in one of the most seismically active regions of the world. It also served as a powerful reminder of the unpredictability of nature and the need for constant vigilance and preparation. Today, Japan stands as a global leader in disaster preparedness, with advanced technology, strict building codes, and a population well-versed in emergency procedures. The Great Hanshin Earthquake played a crucial role in shaping this preparedness culture, with its lessons influencing not only Japan's approach to earthquakes, but also its response to other natural disasters. The resilience demonstrated by the people of Kobe has become a beacon of hope for other regions affected by similar catastrophes, offering a model for how communities can recover and rebuild in the face of unimaginable loss. As we reflect on the events of January 17, 1995, we are reminded of the power of human resilience. The tragedy of the Great Hanshin Earthquake may have caused immense pain and suffering, but it also highlighted the strength of the human spirit. The survivors, the first responders, and the people of Kobe who came together to rebuild their city showed the world what it means to persevere in the face of overwhelming odds. It's a story of tragedy, yes, but also one of hope, unity, and the unwavering will to rebuild after disaster strikes. In closing, the Great Hanshin Earthquake serves as a reminder of how fragile life can be and how important it is to be prepared for the unexpected. While we cannot predict when or where the next disaster will strike, we can take the lessons from past events and use them to strengthen our own communities. The disaster's impact continues to be felt, but the recovery process stands as a testament to the resilience and determination of the people of Kobe in Japan. This is a story that will continue to be told for generations, not just as a historical event, but as a lasting reminder of the power of human spirit in the face of disaster.